when I first started learning about the occult and spirituality, it wasn't so much about me trying to be a witch or be this kind of like odd witchy person. It was about me wanting to explore myself and figure out who I was. And so Reiki was something that was always in my mind. And I studied Reiki in Sedona, and it's been 6 years. 6 years I have been certified as being a Reiki master. And it sounded absolutely silly when I first started. And now I want to talk about the journey that I had and how it's grown and how it's shifted. So Reiki is all about hitting to the root cause of things. And I find that anytime something is going on or shifting in my life, that's what it's all about. You want to hit to the root cause of things. And when I'm working with people, that stuff will come out. And it'll come out in the bodies in different ways. Consider taking a Reiki class, consider becoming a Reiki practitioner, and realize that Reiki is just one word for what it's been called. So I actually had to look up my website, because on my website, I actually have found all these different names once. And so I'm just going to give you a few and from the cultures that they come from. Prana comes from India, but Prana and Reiki are synonymous. So these are all the words that are synonymous. Mana comes from Hawaii, Polynesia. Okay, so once again, if you ever heard the word mana, they're talking about that energy, that force. So everything I'm saying here, feel free to start to study the cultures of it and how they use it, because that becomes really interesting. PNEUMA, P-N-E-U-M-A, that comes from ancient Greece. So then we have Intu, which is from the Bantu culture. Same energy. Nilchi, that comes from the Navajos. Adonvido, it's A-D-O-N-V-D-O from the Cherokee. Noom from the Bushmen, the Kung Bushmen. Iwa, Iewa, Yoruba. And a lot of us connect to Yoruban religions here in the States, just because of the whole West African connection. And then there's more. Animal magnetism was coined by Dr. Franz Mesmer and made headway in Europe starting in 1779 and was in practice for 50 years before it was phased out. So listen to that. 1779, they were practicing energy healing in Europe. There were hospitals, and of course they did the research. Think about what they're calling it, animal magnetism. Think about racism, and then think about the way every culture has dealt with it. So it's been around for a long time. And I want to say that because when I was first learning, I was so nervous to be learning about it from like white people. I was like, why am I going to learn from white people? And I really had this anxiety about it. I'm like, well, what do they really know? Like, because I knew that, I mean, I'm not saying white people didn't have a spiritual practice, but it's just that I just was like kind of nervous about it. And then all this information started to come through, and I started to understand, like, this is something for you to learn and know, plain and simple. And how you're going to get it is how you're going to get it. You know, I'm not going to be able to achieve some of the things I want if I let something like, you know, race and whatever I hear, you know, whatever stereotypes, all that kind of stuff I hear to stop me. So then I just said, you know what, whatever. And at that time, it was the best situation for me. And the way they taught it was so kind of like free in a way. It wasn't something that really like overtook my thoughts. It was perfect for me. So that's how I got into the Reiki realm and also opened up my mind on the possibilities. Dr. USUI, Japanese monk, he really kind of got this going in 1922, which is why Reiki is so kind of young. And then HAWAYO TAKATA is the one that brought it here, really made it popular in the West. So I just want you to think about that, how it's rarely, the concept of the word Reiki is new, but historically, in all these different cultures, it's been around forever. I talk about this because out of all the spiritual practices that came forth, you know, you have tarot, you have scrying, they're dealing with black mirrors, they're dealing with all this stuff to use a medium for things and do spiritual things. And I find that the thing that was the most tangible to me along this journey in the last 6 years has been Reiki. That's why when people ask me, what do you know about, you know, are you into tarot? I'm like, no, I'm not into tarot. I'm not saying that it isn't a great use, but what's tangible to me has really truly been working with energy. It's how I've been able to read people's bodies. It's how I've been able to read people's energies. It's how I understand where people are coming from all through, you know, Reiki. and that energy. And that's not something that was taught to me. It wasn't taught in class. It was something that through practice I started to realize. And they did say, you know, you might hear an intuitive message in here or there, but they didn't want to guarantee it to people so that everyone who was studying Reiki thought, oh yes, I'm about to get this intuitive message. So it was suggested that it was possible, but it wasn't guaranteed. But for me, right away, I started to get intuitive messages. I mean, I used to see things, I would see things shifting on the walls. I would see animals here and there and all of that all through this practice, which is something that, put a crystal ball in front of me, it's not happening. And so that's how I started to grow my understanding and also my commitment to growing in my Reiki practice. One thing that I've learned, and I'm talking about the role that it has in my life, I've learned that there are no limits on it. And it's an energy that is intriguing, fascinating, but there are no limits on Reiki and what Reiki can be. And I think that's one of the most important things to know and understand. And when I've been using it, it's connecting me to people's spirit guides. It's connecting me to other energy. Me being open, I start to hear messages and all that all through Reiki. That hasn't happened in anything else. So that's the biggest thing that I've learned in this process. When it comes to all the teachers and all the people that have come through, I think it's important to understand you're going to be able to find and learn about this stuff from anyone and anyone that can come into your world. There's no reason why you should be limited. One of the weirdest things that I found that happened is that in doing Reiki, all of a sudden, if you go online, you have all these people who have different kinds of Reiki. Holy fire Reiki, Kundalini Reiki, angel Reiki, and all that kind of stuff. But they're always just talking about one thing, but maybe their way in understanding the energy. I figure probably by year 10 of doing this, I'll figure out exactly how I would like to teach it and connect other people to the knowledge and energy of it. But today, I want to talk about the ways that I've seen it work for me. So there's aspects of Reiki that I think that become weird, and that's the symbols. There are symbols in Reiki that were created by Dr. USUI. Now, I had the name pronounced perfectly well before this video, just so you know, but it's just a weird name. I'm going to call him Dr. U for short right now, just so I can talk about it. And those symbols were specific. This symbol does this symbol does that. Now, of course, as you can imagine, and during my own process, I started to create my own symbols. Creating my own symbols, it was just that, well, what does this symbol mean to me? And I created those symbols, of course, using the power of creating sigils. Well, I took my time and slowly but surely I said, this actually does feel right, and I actually do want to use this. And so that's what I started to do, starting to use symbols as a form of channeling universal life force energy and moving it in directions that I felt were powerful and impactful. This is something to understand, and this is the thing that I understood when I was working with Reiki. The first thing you're taught is let your ego and personality step aside. Once you're able to do that, you are able to release. You're releasing judgment, you're releasing what you think you're releasing what that person that you're working with, what you think they need. It's no longer about you and your thoughts and your theories and all of that. It's about you being present in the moment. One thing you learn is like when you do Reiki, you also want to give Reiki to yourself, right? They say you can't heal someone else until you heal yourself. One of the things I noticed that we were taught, which I don't use as much, asking the person, are you willing to heal? You can sit there and give the energy and do all that, but if they aren't willing, it doesn't matter. And that's what you'll notice with a lot of people holding on to that pain, to the ego. They aren't willing to heal. And that's a big thing for all people. Like if you are trying to do something, there's something that you're going through in life, you have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to make that shift and change. When you are going through a healing process, things change, things shift. They tear down to build back up. It's one of those things you have to be willing to do. You have to be saying, all right, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for these shifts and changes because I understand they are aligned to my healing. And of course, then it takes trust. When someone is open to it, when someone is trusting towards it, it's amazing to watch, to see how they shift and change. It's amazing to see the growth that they have. That's been probably a big delight, but I don't allow myself to attach so much to the outcome. You have to be willing to release and let things go. Once you finish a session or once you are moving that energy around, it's nice to just say, all right, I'm done. That's why you have to get in a childlike mind. Other than that, you're just hanging out. They're just hanging out because this energy is always around, right? It's not like the energy isn't here. For me, my experience has always been extremely beautiful, calming. You get a sense of well-being, a sense of joy. I see people float right on out. That's my experience with the energy, and that will remain my experience. I have regular Reiki sessions, and I'm learning something every single time. By now, if people have worked with me, you guys know a lot of times I'm like, oh, that's never happened before. I'm pretty much saying that in every session. I'm like, oh gosh, that's the first time that's happened. There's a new experience every time because people are different, and it teaches you a lot about all kinds of people. So far, the role that Reiki has played in my life has gently guided me in different places and different moments, opening up my heart, helping me understand how it all works, and realizing it's not something you can force upon someone. And that's something to really think about. It's something that has to evolve. Magic.